you have medical healthcare policies in place? Do you have a will? If you don't have enough access to go to trust, do you have a will in place? So you have to look at the entire structure holistically instead of isolating our trust and saying, well, I don't have enough access to trust. But you gotta start somewhere, right? You don't just build up overnight. It's a continual process.
Love that, love that. Because I'm going to tax code. Because you are a wizard, a genius as it relates to translating the tax law code to everyday language. Why does the tax code seem to reward people who own businesses, real estate and other assets differently than somebody who simply earns a paycheck?
Ooh, that's a good question. The tax code is all about behavior. You see, the government is going to partner with business owners and investors to do the things that they can do. We all received stimulus checks back in 2020. Unfortunately, the government can provide stimulus checks for absolutely everybody. So they partner with business owners and allow for business owners to get deductions for employing employees. They partner with investors because investors are going to invest in real estate and provide affordable housing. These are things that the tax code rewards. Oil and gas, we need to be able to power our cars for emergencies. And if you continue to look at the behaviors inside of the tax code, you're going to eventually become a business owner. You're going to eventually become an investor.
Now, I love that. So, follow-up question. So, you're saying if somebody right now has a 9-to-5, they're a high earner and making money, in order to stretch that money and make that money go further legally and save on taxes, they should start a business somewhere.
Yeah, because when you were working a 9-to-5, you get paid after the IRS gets paid. But when you're a business owner, you get paid first, and you get to create expenses, and then Uncle Sam gets paid third. I'm always going to side with the latter because I have more control. And if you decide that you want to start leveraging the tax code, you're going to have to take on risks. Business owners take on risks every single day. How many of you guys out here are business owners? Raise your hand. You guys are taking on risks every single day, and the IRS rewards you for that. And as soon as you become an investor, that's another risk you got to take on because you become a landlord. So we have to do the things that the tax code is going to reward us for.
I love that. Next business!
Yes.
That's it. So most entrepreneurs think taxes mean filing a tax return once a year. What's the biggest difference between tax preparation and tax strategy, and why is it a year-round planning so important?
Ooh, you started now. Before we listen, we got the entrepreneurs. We know that this is a Super Bowl for entrepreneurs. I want to hear from all of our entrepreneurs. All right. I'm not in energy. I need to feel the people. That's my thing. All right. So most people have a big misconception about the tax code where they're always concerned about tax deductions. Guys, saving on taxes does not start with tax deductions. It starts with tax planning, right? So let's just walk over. In 2027, what do we do? We file out, in 2027, we're going to file out taxes for 2026, right? That really makes sense, right? What they're saying and what they had us focused on for so long is, oh, we're going to have you focus on tax paying season, because tax planning season is throughout the year. So everybody who's in this room is in a position to win. Let me hear you guys say win. You guys are not going to win. That doesn't sound like you're ready to win. Let me hear you guys say win. All right. Now you guys are in a position to win because tax planning says if I'm going to save on taxes, I have to do it throughout the year. If I'm going to make a change for my 2026 taxes, whether that's taking advantage of tax deductions, hiring your child, or utilizing a buster rule, or buying real estate, whatever it is, we need to do it in 2026 because in 2027, that's when y'all start waking up thinking about the tax code. And the IRS is like, got him, right? And that's not how we approach taxes. So if I leave you guys with anything today, make sure that you guys are focused on saving on taxes in 2026. Don't wait to go to your accountant, CPA, whoever it is, in 2027 about what you got for me. I can hire my kids. No, because you ain't paid up in 2026.
What's the first part of that strategy? What's the first thing that they should do?
First thing I always tell everyone is you have to sit down and really understand where your money is coming from. Do you have W-2 income? Do you have business income? Do you have real estate income? And one thing I want you guys to understand is that you're paying more than just income taxes, right? You guys pay income tax, right? Federal state income taxes, local income taxes, social security tax, Medicare tax. You go outside and buy a shirt, you're paying sales taxes. You buy gas, you're paying taxes. I want you guys to understand that if your goal is to truly live tax-free, you have to make sure that you are looking at every bucket of taxes that you're paying. So if you're saying, hey, I want to reduce my federal income tax, then you need to say, okay, I have W-2 income and I'm working for that. It's being taxed at the highest rate. Then I also have some business income. Okay, my business income could possibly help me offset my W-2 income. Okay, if I have, people say this all the time, right? I sold some stocks. Well, guess what, guys? Stocks is in a whole different bucket because those are called capital gains, right? So those are taxed in a whole different bucket. So I need you guys to first understand where your income is, determine how you can implement those tax deductions. Because again, the tax code is not at a shortage of the tax strategy. It's 77,000 pages, right? It's 77,000 pages. It's just at a shortage of people really sitting down and implementing the tax deductions and tax strategies that we use.
Love that, love that, love that. Shanice, talk to us, so we're going to talk, payments, and maybe not payments, but trust, right? So what's the difference between a revocable trust versus an irrevocable trust? And why do wealthy families use irrevocable trust? And how can it be used to protect their treasury?
Okay, before I answer that question, I just want to piggyback on something that Ms. Business said, because another tax that a lot of people are not aware of or should be aware of is death tax. Death tax and inheritance tax. So we got all these taxes while we're alive, but guess what, y'all? When we die, our estate gets taxed again. If you don't do proper planning, okay? The highest tax you can pay. It's no joke, the tax rate, okay? So when it comes to revocable versus irrevocable, I want you to understand that both of them do these two things the same. Both of them avoid probate, both of them give you privacy, and both of them allow you to pass on wealth, to do a transfer of wealth. Where they differ, the acronym that I want to use is taxes, so T, protection for P, and then C for control. Okay, so when it comes to protection, an irrevocable trust gives you asset protection. A revocable trust does not give you asset protection. So when you call your lawyer, you say, I'm going to put everything in a trust so that no one can sue me. That cannot be accomplished with a revocable trust. You would need an irrevocable trust to be able to do so. And a true irrevocable trust. Because some of y'all created an irrevocable trust for yourself on lawdepot.com and you still name yourself as a trustee. You are still in full control. So as a former litigator, if I wanted to sue you, I could very easily pierce through that trust by arguing that you still retain control. Okay, so that's control and protection. When it comes to taxes, another misconception, a revocable trust does nothing for you as far as taxes are concerned, and they can attest to that. So a revocable trust, that is included in your taxable estate when you die, and while you are alive, you are considered the same taxpayer. There is no separate tax return that you need to file for a revocable trust. Now, an irrevocable trust, another misconception is that, well, if I just put an irrevocable trust, can I save on taxes while I'm alive? It depends on the type of trust. I think we might get on that a little bit later when it comes to charitable remainder trust, but an irrevocable trust might save you taxes when you pass away if it's not included in your taxable estate, if you determine that you were not in control while you were living, okay? And if it's a non-grantor trust, it possibly while you are alive could become a full taxpayer. But another thing that Ms. Business said is that you have to realize that non-grantor irrevocable trusts have the highest tax rate. Okay, so a lot of y'all are like, I want to create a non-grantor irrevocable discretionary trust. Well, are you prepared to pay 37 to 40% in taxes versus your individual tax rate? So you really need to be not getting all your information off of Google and actually sit down with a team to figure out whether or not an irrevocable trust is really the option for you. But it's a great benefit if you're above your state's debt tax limit because, for example, my state of Massachusetts, our debt tax limit is $2 million. So if I pass away with more than $2 million in my estate, I will be leaving a huge tax bill for my family.
You got to round of applause for that. She dropped a lot of gems. A lot of gems. So look, I'm a former Hoover Sis, I wasn't gonna ask this question.
My bad.
No. I'm gonna ask it later. She gave me a sis. And so my question to you is about, real estate, right? It's one of the biggest wealth building tools in America. So I want you to break down the tax advantages, particularly depreciation, plus segregation. But she also mentioned, right, charitable trust, right? So can you talk a little bit about some of those like wealth strategies, plus segregation, one of those good things? And also, how does giving back to charity kind of help, with the tax?
Yeah. So we'll start with real estate first because I love real estate. How many of you guys in here are real estate investors? Love to see that. You know the tax code rewards it, right? You do know that, right? When it comes to real estate, we get depreciation, which is the wear and tear of our investment property. As soon as you buy an investment property, it's sitting outside in the rain, the sleet, the snow. Even though the property can appreciate in value every single year, it's technically depreciating, and the government gives you a write-off for it. When you decide to be an active investor in real estate, you can be a real estate professional, means you're spending 750 hours in a year managing your own rental property or you're in your own real estate operation. But you also have to show the IRS you're spending more time in real estate than any other thing. If you're able to do that, you can use that depreciation to create what we call a paper loss. I love playing with paper losses because I can apply this strategy called the cost segregation study, where I can segregate the property into smaller components, get all the appliances, the windows, the shrubbery on the outside, and I can write off these components in as quick as 1 year. On an average cost segregation study, you're looking at about 25, maybe 40% of the entire purchase price as a year one loss. And if you qualify as a real estate professional, that loss can flow over to offset W-2 income, your S corporation income, your LLC income. You can become tax-free this way, and that's how me and my wife were able to do it. Not everybody can qualify though as a real estate professional. And so back in 2020, I had time, like many of you guys did, and I went back into the tax code, and I thought, where were Airbnbs and VRBOs? Because the Passive Activity Law School was written in 1987 when Ronald Reagan did the Tax Reform Act. Airbnb and VRBO didn't come out until 2013. And if you have an Airbnb or VRBO, it's technically viewed as a hotel or motel-like businesses if you are able to rent out the property 7 days or less on average per customer. Now, you don't have to spend 750 hours to make that depreciation loss and active loss against your 1099 or your W-2. You only have to spend 100 hours and more than any other person managing your Airbnb and short-term rentals. So we have taxpayers that might purchase these short-term rentals at the end of the year, manage the property for 100 hours, apply that cost segregation study, and can create a paper loss to offset their taxable income. That's the power of using depreciation in combination with the cost segregation study. Now, if we're going to talk a little bit about charitable structures, I want you to lean back in your chair here for a second because this gets real interesting. When I first started looking at charities, I thought it was literally just about giving money away. Little did I know that people are using these philanthropic structures for tax mitigation and wealth building. Let me explain it to you. The IRS will allow for you to roll over 30% of your adjusted gross income that is cash into your own, not anybody else's, your own private family foundation. Now here's the catch. You're underneath those documents. Your family members possibly are underneath those documents, and they're your board members. That means that you're going to have a bank account just like your normal business. That means you can take deductions just like your normal business. That means you can employ people just like a normal business, which include family members as well. But here's the real part to kicker. Only 5% of the charitable assets that made it inside of your foundation have to be donated out every single year. You put $100,000 in, only $5,000 is actually being written out into a check to your favorite charitable church organization. And I would say a lot of these wealthy individuals are using these private family foundations for more than just giving money back. They're putting on their own events, they're putting on their own fundraising, their own charitable, philanthropic things, and they're being able to leverage the tax code to the fullest extent.
Sheesh. All right, round of applause for that. Everybody wants to know about deductions, right? Anytime I speak to somebody or anytime I hear people want to know about taxes, the first thing is deduction. Give us one or two tax strategies wealthy entrepreneurs use that most businesses are overlooking over.
Ooh, well, my favorite Carlton just took it. Okay, it's real estate. Okay, so we're gonna do. Okay, so I have two other ones that wealthy people are using. Well, the first thing that wealthy people are doing is they are tax planning. So they're preparing upfront to say, you know what? How am I going to make sure that I get to keep my money and I'm not giving 50% of my money away in all taxes? So that's the first thing, right? It has nothing to do with tax deductions. The other thing is figuring out, okay, well, what exactly am I spending money on personally that I can say, you know what, I'm using this for my business, so it's a tax deduction. Whether it's the dust in the room. How many of you guys have kids in here? I know y'all left them at home, which I can give a little bit more, you know. I know, I'm going to ask that question. So how many of you guys have children in here? All right, so if you have children in here, I always say, the tax code, guys, is a wealth map, okay? And let me just break it down. So when most of the people are looking at the tax code, they're not looking at the tax code and saying, oh, I get to write off a meal. No, what they're saying is, how can I start a business? Because as Paulson said, if you're on the right side of the tax code, they want to reward you. You're doing what they want you to do. So when you start a business, you're able to increase your cash flow. You increase your cash flow. You have your business is private. You're able to take tax deductions. What happens is you're freeing up your money. Now you get to invest. Now you invest in real estate. Now you get to keep more of your money. Then it's a situation where you say, you know what, I have these children. I need to hire these children. Okay, no problem. You hire your children in your business and you don't just stop there. And I call it the tax trifecta. Why? Because you get to take a tax deduction of $16,100 in your business. You then get to, guys, you have to transfer the money to the child's account, okay? I'm giving y'all a process. You transfer the money to the child's account, and then from there, what you do is you say, you know what? I'm then going to take $7,500 of that money, invest it into a Roth IRA, and if you literally just keep contributing to that, and you guys can put this in a calculator. If you guys start when your child is 7, and you guys keep contributing to that, until your child is not in retirement about 62, right? If you guys contribute, you start, and your child starts, the same $7,500 every single year, your child will have $6 million in retirement. All from tax deduction, right? So now when you hire your kids, you're leaving wealth to your child. Then what happens? You have your asset. And most people talk about leaving a legacy. If legacy is important to you guys, say legacy.
Legacy.
Legacy is important. But guess what you need in order to leave a legacy? You need some stuff. Right? You need some stuff. So guess what? Through your business, you now have assets. You have a business you can pay down. And more importantly, guys, retirement. I have to bring this up. I know this isn't on your page, but it's very heavy on my heart because what I see, whether you have W-2 income or you don't, I know that there are a lot of people that are not prepared for retirement. And I want to make the room really understand this. I'm going to ask, I'm sorry, I gotta. If you feel that you are financially prepared for retirement, stand up. You are financially prepared for retirement, stand up. You guys see that? You guys see that? We are in a retirement crisis. Each and every one of you. Earlier, she said, who has a business? There were so many of you that said, I have a business. So if you have a business, contributing to your retirement is a tax deduction. So when we start talking about how wealthy people are utilizing the tax code, they're not thinking about tax deduction. They're thinking about how can I use the same tax code that's beating poor and middle class people down? How can I use it to build my retirement, build my child's future, and make sure that I'm able to leave a legacy? That's what they're doing.
Round of applause for that, yo. We hear terms like dynasty trusts, Rockefeller style trusts. What are these structures actually designed to accomplish, and how can families use them to make sure wealth lasts for multiple generations?
That's a loaded question, and I'm gonna try my best to
Legacy.
to that. So I want to first make sure that we understand that the Rockefeller waterfall method or the Rockefeller Trust or Dynasty Trust is actually an ecosystem, okay? And within that ecosystem, there are multiple pillars that make that ecosystem work. And one, I'll condense it to 4. I'll say that one pipeline within that ecosystem is irrevocable trust, which includes a dynasty trust, okay? Which is a type of irrevocable trust that allows the trust to pass on from generation to generation to generation. Because what a lot of you don't understand is that depending on your state law, your trust will expire, okay? It's called the rules against perpetuity. And trust by nature, depending on the trust, cannot continue for multiple generations. Usually it will stop or expire after about 2 to 3 generations. So if you are looking for a multi-generational structure, which is what the Rockefellers did, that has lasted 200, 300 years, you would need a specific type of just a dynastic trust. So when we talk about dynastic trust, we're talking about trust that can potentially last 300 years or even in perpetuity in some states. And a second pipeline within that ecosystem that they created was life insurance. So specifically the waterfall method is they use a specific type of life insurance. We're all familiar with like term life and IULs and whole, whatever your philosophy is. But within that ecosystem, they have permanent life insurance. And so that meant that every beneficiary got life insurance on the trust got life insurance on their life. And so that ensures that the well never runs dry. Because when someone passes away, what does the death benefit to? It pours them right back into the trust. And to go even a little bit further, hold on, give me 1 second.
You good, you good.
To go a little bit further is the permanent life insurance has cash value to it, right? So when the trust owns that policy and you're pouring from the different things like investments and businesses, that's why it's so important to be an entrepreneur, because that's what fuels the engine, that's what fuels the ecosystem. When you have that cash value built inside of it, what can the trust now do? It can take out a loan against the policy, and when you're a beneficiary of the trust, you can take out a loan against the trust. And so it just continues to replenish itself because there's an ecosystem being built that's backed by businesses, that's backed by investments, it's backed by insurance, and backed by irrevocable trust like a dynastic trust.
Sheesh. Yo, this panel is giving us so much game, so I hope y'all paying attention. Coffee, give us one completely legal. Completely legal.
Who here is a homeowner? Raise your hand. And who here has a business? Keep your hand up. Are you gonna like this one? We call this one the Augusta Rule. I love the Augusta Rule. It started in Augusta, Georgia. Why? Because that golf tournament out there called the Masters, man, there wasn't enough hotels. And so when people came in from all over for this Augusta golf tournament, they would go to homeowners and rent out their houses for 7 days or 14 days because the tournament would last 2 weeks. The men would take on the first week, the women would take on the second week. Well, guess what? Homeowners in Augusta, Georgia were making hundreds of thousands of dollars renting out their place. The city of Augusta allowed for what's called this 14-day rule, which means if you earn income in the year for 14 days, it'll be considered tax-free. The very following next year, it became a federal tax code, and now it's underneath Code Section 280A. If you're a business owner and you have a primary residence, you can rent out your primary residence to your business, preferably an S corporation or an LLC tax as an S corporation, and receive a tax deduction. And you can base it off of the fair market rental days of your property. So if your property is 1,200 square feet and it costs $2,400 to rent out that type of space on Pure Space or in another hotel, you can get a comparable rate and create a contract between yourself and your business and deduct up to 14 days of you renting out your house to your business. Now, you need to make sure that you're actually conducting real business events, conducting real, intentional business events there, but that's how you're able to take advantage of the 14-day Augusta Rule.
That's crazy. That's powerful. A lot of tax strategy on here. Like we talked about a lot of stuff. A lot of us, like we live in the age of ChatGPT, Claude, so we think we can replace our tax professional with AI, right? And lawyers, right? But you often say that wealthy people don't build wealth alone. Why is having the right team of experts so important?
Okay, one, I want to tell you guys, AI is only as good as the knowledge you know. Okay? Someone actually asked me a question. They said, my tax person was able to make me a tax professional, real estate professional. I said, well, you don't qualify. You have W-2 income. And the W-2 income, you work about 80 hours. You're not even working 40 hours. You're going in and doing overtime. You have to prove to them that you can spend, more time. They were like, well, ChatGPT. And I also spent 85 hours doing real estate. And so I was like, let me tell you something. is only as good as the knowledge that you have to feed it, okay? So just take the information that you guys get from all AI with a grain of salt. You have to fact check. Just because they say it, that do not allow ChatGPT to get you audited, okay? Because they do not help you. They'll just come back and be like, you know what, you were right. You know, and that's something that, you know what, I should have thought about that. So make sure that you guys are fact checking this information. But to your question about just wealth building, it is very important. I just wrote down to you guys how wealthy people are utilizing the tax code to build wealth. And I know that you guys, when you think about saving on taxes, you're like, I need a CPA. No, you need a whole team of people.
Yes.
It is not just a CPA. I am great. I am amazing. I can help you save on taxes. But guess what? I need you to have all the pieces of the puzzle. So when we start thinking like, oh, wealthy people get all the breaks. No, wealthy people they have a team of experts. And that's the reason why we started. And I said, you know what? I'm leaving corporate. I started out with the stock conference. I said, I'm leaving to bring these strategies to small businesses because I watched my dad have a business and I'm like, this accounts to me. Right? And so what I did, guys, was I am hosting After Investment starting on Tuesday. I am going into overtime because if you guys know you've been around and see my team, you know this is investable, right? This is investable, right? So we are going in overtime, guys. And I am hosting along with Monray, the marketing, the one that is helping me make sure that we get this marketing message out. I'm Monray. I'm bringing Dana. She's doing real estate. I am doing Kenny. He's bringing in funding. I'm bringing Mrs. Lindsay, insurance, right? So we are going in overtime, guys. It is a free 3 day because in my mind, I said last year I felt bad because I was giving all the attention to the vendors. I was like, oh, teach something to you guys. So we're going to overtime. So after this weekend on Tuesday, we are going to start a free 3 day because it's so important that you guys understand the entire puzzle. So they're going to put a code up on the screen, and I want you guys to scan the QR code, sign up. We're going into overtime because having a team is more important. You cannot save on taxes if you do not know the tax deductions. If your business is structured, if your business isn't structured properly, you can't get access to funding if your business is structured incorrectly.